Inside every cell of your body, there is something that science is only beginning to understand. Not the genes that code for physical characteristics, not the biological instructions that determine the color of your eyes, or the shape of your hands, or the particular way your metabolism processes food. Those aspects of your genetics are well mapped, well studied, and well understood within the frameworks of conventional biology. What science is only beginning to understand is something else entirely. Something that was once dismissed as irrelevant, labeled with the confident dismissiveness that science sometimes mistakes for precision, as junk, as biological noise, as the evolutionary residue of processes that no longer served any useful function. That dismissal was wrong. The Pleiadians have known it was wrong for a very long time. What conventional science once called junk DNA, the vast portions of the human genome that do not code for proteins in the ordinary way, that do not participate in the biochemical processes that researchers first understood and mapped, these regions are not junk. They are not evolutionary detritus. They are not the meaningless byproduct of millions of years of biological development. They are a library, an archive, a repository of capacities and potentials and modes of awareness and perception that the human organism has not yet had the environmental conditions to express, that have been present in the genetic code of the human species for longer than recorded history, that have been waiting, patient and silent, and encoded at levels of biological reality that conventional science has only recently developed the tools to begin approaching, waiting for exactly the conditions that are now arriving. The solar flash, in the Pleiadian understanding, is among the primary mechanisms by which those conditions are being created. The rising frequencies of the current solar cycle are not acting only on human consciousness in the abstract sense. They are acting on the physical biology of every human being on this planet, on the specific, material, measurable reality of the cells and the DNA and the neurological systems that constitute the physical instrument of human experience. And the activation that is occurring, the awakening of dormant genetic capacities by the extraordinary energetic environment of 2026, is producing effects that those with sufficient sensitivity are already observing in their own direct experience. 5 specific effects. 5 signs that the DNA activation is occurring. 5 markers that, taken together and observed honestly, constitute compelling personal evidence that the solar flash is doing exactly what the Pleiadians say it is designed to do. Before we explore the 5 signs, something important needs to be said about how to receive them. Because the concept of DNA activation exists in a space where genuine insight and spiritual bypassing can easily become confused with each other. And the Pleiadians want to be very precise about what they are describing and what they are not. They are not describing a process that bypasses the genuine inner work of consciousness development. DNA activation, in their understanding, is not a cosmic intervention that upgrades human capability independently of the quality of consciousness inhabiting the biological system. The activation is real. It is physical. It has measurable correlates in the actual biology of the human organism. But what it activates, and how fully and how usefully it activates it, is directly related to the quality of the consciousness present in the system being activated. A more developed consciousness inhabiting a body undergoing DNA activation will experience that activation as a genuine expansion of accessible capacity. A less developed consciousness in the same biological process will have a more limited experience of what the activation makes available. This is not unfair. It is simply the nature of how activation works in any complex system. The hardware upgrade does not independently of the software that runs on it determine what the upgraded system can do. With that understanding clearly in place, here are the 5 signs. The first sign is what the Pleiadians describe as a fundamental change in the quality of cognitive processing. Not a simple increase in the speed or the accuracy of ordinary rational thought. though some people do experience improvements in those dimensions as well. But a change in kind. A qualitative shift in the mode of thinking itself that goes beyond what more information or more experience or more practice in ordinary reasoning would produce. What many people describe is the emergence of a capacity for synthesis that was not previously available. The ability to hold multiple complex perspectives simultaneously, in a genuinely integrated way rather than in the sequential way that ordinary linear reasoning requires, and to perceive relationships between them that cannot be seen from inside any single perspective alone. A kind of pattern recognition that operates at a speed and a scope that exceeds what the ordinary analytical mind can produce through its ordinary processes. Others describe what might be called a new relationship with understanding itself, a quality of comprehension that arrives complete rather than assembled. The sense of suddenly grasping something in its entirety, all at once, rather than building toward understanding through the sequential accumulation of parts. A holistic mode of knowing that operates in parallel with, not instead of, but genuinely alongside, the ordinary linear mode of reasoning that most education has developed. This is not the rejection of analytical intelligence. The Pleiadians are not describing a shift away from careful reasoning towards something that substitutes intuitive leaping for genuine understanding. They are describing the emergence of an additional mode of intelligence, one that has been encoded in the human genome and that the ordinary conditions of human cognitive development have not previously been able to reliably express, becoming genuinely accessible alongside the modes that were already available. The second sign is a genuine expansion of sensory range and sensory precision. The 5 ordinary senses becoming more refined, more capable of detecting subtleties that were previously below the threshold of ordinary perception. Colors that were once experienced as simple appearances now revealing qualities and variations and something almost like depth that the ordinary visual system did not register. Sounds carry more informational content. The sense of touch becoming more communicative about the qualities of what it contacts, beyond simple texture and temperature. But alongside the refinement of the ordinary senses, something more significant. The emergence, sometimes subtle, sometimes quite pronounced, of what might be described as sensory capacities that operate through channels that conventional neuroscience does not yet fully map. A direct felt sense of the energetic state of people and environments that arrives before any conventional sensory information has provided grounds for the assessment. A knowing about what someone is carrying or feeling or intending that operates faster than any reading of facial expression or body language or tone of voice could account for. An awareness of the relational field between people, the quality of what is happening in the space between individuals, that operates through a channel that the 5 ordinary senses simply do not explain. Many people who are experiencing this expansion of sensory range are not entirely comfortable with it. The ordinary frameworks available for understanding human perception do not accommodate what they are experiencing, and the gap between what they are perceiving and what they can explain to others creates a particular quality of isolation that those going through genuine development often encounter. The Pleiadians want to offer something to those in this experience. What you are perceiving is real. The channel through which it is arriving is real. The discomfort of perceiving things that you cannot yet fully explain or communicate is not evidence that something is wrong with your perception. It is evidence that your perception has expanded beyond the frameworks that the ordinary world has available to account for it. The frameworks will catch up, slowly, imperfectly, but they will catch up. And in the meantime, the most useful thing you can do with expanded perception is to use it honestly, humbly, and in service of genuine understanding rather than in service of any ego-gratifying narrative about what it means about you. The third sign is a transformation in the body's relationship with its own intelligence. The human body has always been extraordinarily intelligent. It runs systems of extraordinary complexity, immune responses, hormonal regulation, neurological processing, the coordination of billions of cellular activities in every moment without any conscious direction. It heals. It adapts. It communicates with the consciousness inhabiting it through a language of sensation and energy and feeling that is remarkably rich and remarkably precise when someone is genuinely paying attention to it. But for most people, for most of the history of ordinary human consciousness, the body's intelligence has operated largely below the level of accessible awareness. The communication it sends has been routinely overridden by the mind's agenda. The wisdom it carries has been consistently outranked by the authority of thought, preference, habit, and social conditioning about what the body should feel and need and do. As DNA activation occurs, this relationship changes. The body's signals become clearer. The language it speaks becomes easier to interpret. The gap between what the body is communicating and what the mind is able to consciously receive from that communication narrows. A growing capacity to distinguish, with increasing precision, between what the body genuinely needs and what the conditioned mind has decided it needs. Between what the body is trying to communicate and what the ordinary frameworks of health and desire and habit have trained the mind to hear. This is not a romantic idealization of instinct over reason. The Pleiadians are not suggesting that every physical sensation should be followed without discernment or that the body's intelligence supersedes the wisdom of genuine medical care. They are describing something more specific: the growing accessibility of a form of intelligence that has always been present in the biological system, but that the conditions of ordinary consciousness have largely prevented from being consciously utilized. The body knows what it is undergoing. It has capacities for self-regulation, for adaptation to changing energetic conditions, for communicating what the activation process requires, that are becoming increasingly available to conscious awareness as the DNA activation proceeds. Learning to receive and respond to this communication with genuine attention, genuine respect for the intelligence it carries, and genuine willingness to act on what it reveals, is one of the most practically important aspects of working with what the solar flash is doing to the physical system. The fourth sign is a deepening and widening of the emotional range, not greater emotional instability. The Pleiadians are very careful to make this distinction clearly, because the experience they are describing can superficially resemble emotional dysregulation, and the temptation to pathologize it from within the frameworks of ordinary psychology is real. What they are describing is not instability. It is expansion. The genuine widening of what a human consciousness is capable of feeling. The development of a greater range of emotional depth, both in the direction of joy and beauty and profound appreciation, and in the direction of genuine grief and genuine compassion for suffering. That represents a real increase in the emotional intelligence and the emotional capacity of the system. The capacity for joy that exceeds what ordinary happiness provides. Not the pleasant feeling that arises when circumstances are favorable, but something that touches a quality of aliveness and genuine appreciation for existence that the ordinary emotional range cannot quite reach. Moments of beauty that produce something closer to awe than the ordinary experience of aesthetic pleasure. Encounters with genuine goodness in people or situations that produce a felt quality of recognition and gratitude that goes beyond ordinary positive affect. And alongside this expansion in the direction of joy, a corresponding expansion in the direction of genuine compassion. Not the sympathetic discomfort that arises when others suffer and that produces the reflexive desire to make the suffering stop as quickly as possible so one's own discomfort can be relieved, but something more patient and more willing. The capacity to be genuinely present with suffering, one's own and others, without the desperate urgency to escape it or resolve it or explain it away. This is what the Pleiadians describe as the activation of the heart intelligence. the intelligence encoded in the DNA of the heart center, which carries, in their understanding, dimensions of awareness and processing capacity that are qualitatively different from and complementary to the intelligence of the cranial brain, beginning to express itself more fully as the activation proceeds. The heart intelligence, when genuinely developed, is not emotional in the ordinary sense of reactive feeling states. It is a form of knowing, a mode of perceiving what is real about people and situations and relationships and possibilities that the analytical brain cannot access through its ordinary processes. A wisdom that knows not through reasoning but through resonance, through genuine felt contact with what is actually present in any given moment or relationship. The fifth sign, and the one that the Pleiadians say is the most direct and the most unmistakable evidence of DNA activation, the one that cannot be fabricated by the mind or produced by wishful thinking, the one that arrives only as the genuine product of something actually having changed at a fundamental level of the biological system, is what they describe as the emergence of spontaneous knowing, moments of insight that arrive complete, not assembled through the ordinary process of information gathering and analysis and synthesis, not produced by deliberate effort to figure something out, but simply appearing whole and immediate and certain in the field of awareness, without any identifiable prior process having generated them. The recognition of what is true about a person or a situation that arrives before any conventional evidence has been gathered. The understanding of a complex situation that appears complete before any analysis has been performed. The clarity about what is needed or what is happening or what is actually real in a given moment that presents itself as direct perception rather than as reasoned conclusion. This is not imagination. It is not the projection of desire onto uncertainty or the confusion of emotional preference with genuine perception. The Pleiadians want to be very clear about this, because the discernment between genuine spontaneous knowing and its various counterfeits is important and is not always easy. Genuine spontaneous knowing has a quality that is distinct from ordinary intuition, from emotional reactivity, from the mind's tendency to generate conclusions that confirm what it already believes. It arrives without the characteristic urgency of fear-driven perception. It is not accompanied by the emotional charge that typically accompanies projection or wishful thinking. It has a quality of quietness, of simple clarity, that does not demand immediate action or immediate acceptance, but that remains stable and consistent even under the scrutiny of honest examination. It is the natural intelligence of a biological system that has been activated to access a broader spectrum of information than the ordinary processing of the brain makes available. Not a supernatural gift, not a special power reserved for the few, but the natural functioning of human capacities that have been encoded in the genome for a very long time, and that the extraordinary energetic environment of 2026 is finally creating the conditions to genuinely express. The Pleiadians close this transmission with something that they want to be received not as information, but as invitation. If you are experiencing any of the 5 signs described today, the change in cognitive mode, the expansion of sensory range, the transformation in relationship with body intelligence, the deepening of emotional capacity, the emergence of spontaneous knowing, you are already in the activation process, not at its completion. The Pleiadians are not describing a state that is already fully expressed. They are describing a process that is underway, that is accelerating, and that will continue to develop as the solar frequencies continue to rise and as the inner work that serves the activation continues to be done. You are not a passive recipient of what is happening. The activation is occurring in your specific biology, but what it activates and how fully and how usefully it expresses is in significant part a function of the quality of consciousness inhabiting the biology that is being activated. The inner work matters. The daily practice of genuine honesty, of sustained attention, of consistent choice in the direction of what is actually true matters. Not as the price of admission to the activation process, but as the quality of soil in which the seeds that the activation is planting can actually grow. Your body is undergoing something extraordinary. Give it the conditions it needs: the stillness, the natural environments that support the recalibration that is occurring, the honesty that clears the interference through which the new signals are trying to reach you, the genuine compassion for yourself as much as for others that keeps the channel open. The solar flash is doing something real in your biology, and what it is doing is everything you have always sensed was possible. Trust the process, trust the signs, and trust yourself completely to know the difference between what is real and what is not. And one more thing, something the Pleiadians want every soul receiving this transmission to carry forward from this moment. The activation is not happening to you because you are exceptional in a way that excludes others. It is not a mark of spiritual achievement that separates you from the broader human family. Every soul on this planet is undergoing some degree of the process that has been described here. The difference is in the degree of awareness with which it is being navigated, in the quality of attention being brought to what is actually happening, in the willingness to take seriously what the body and the consciousness are actually experiencing rather than forcing that experience into the familiar frameworks that were built before the experience occurred. You are paying attention. That is why this transmission found you. And paying genuine attention to what is actually happening in the specific reality of your specific inner life is itself the most important contribution you can make to the process that is underway. The solar flash is activating something in you that has always been there. The signs of that activation are already present, and the trust required to receive them for what they actually are, not to explain them away, not to pathologize them, not to shrink from the full significance of what they represent, is the most important form of readiness available. Take what resonates, leave what does not, and trust yourself completely and without apology to know the difference. This content is offered for spiritual reflection, symbolic interpretation, and personal insight only. It is not presented as scientific fact, medical advice, or a prediction of real-world events. The narration in this video is generated using artificial intelligence voice technology. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding any physical or medical concerns. Please use your own discernment and personal judgment when engaging with this material.